A very good morning to all the students of class 10th. Children, in the last tutorial, we had finished with the grammar part, tenses. And in your first flight book, we had completed the poem A Tiger in the Zoo. The third lesson is two stories about flying. When you look at this chapter on page number 32, in most of the books it's page number 32, you will find that the chapter is divided into two parts. First is his first flight and second is Black Aeroplane. We'll proceed with the first part, his first flight. See, this story, his first flight, is written by Liam O'Flaherty. It is an account of a young bird that is afraid to fly for the first time. When you look at the picture on page number 33, you will find a picture of number of birds, and the bird is seagull. Seagull is a bird that lives near the sea and has short legs, long wings, white and grey feathers. So this was a short description about the bird seagull. Here in the lesson, there is a baby bird who could not muster up the courage to fly in the sky. But as compared to his siblings, they are much younger than him. They fly in the sky fearlessly, but it was just him who could not gather up the courage to fly. His parents and his siblings were really not happy with him, and they flew to have their meals, and he was left alone. He was punished to stay hungry if he did not try. Now at last, it was his mother that compelled him to fly by using food as a trap. So what does this lesson reflects? The lesson reflects that how one hesitates to take the first step, and that fear is all in the mind. So basically, the message that the lesson, his first flight, throws is one should trust one's abilities because the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself. So this is the message of the lesson, that if we do not take up the first step, how we are going to continue the journey of our life? If we have fear in our mind, how we are going to attempt to go in our next step? It's impossible if we have fear in our mind. So one should always trust on one's abilities, capabilities, capacities, because the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself. So this is what the message of the lesson. See children, before starting the first part, it is very important that you know the meaning of certain words given in the book, given in the lesson, for better understanding of it. Without word meaning, it is like impossible for you to understand the summary of the lesson. Okay. These are certain word meanings which you should know, and if you find that there are other words whose meaning you aren't aware of, so you may write down in the book itself. I've always told you to carry a pencil and write down the meaning of those words just above the word in the book. So when you read the lesson at least 3 times, you will have a better understanding of the words as well as the chapter. Ledge is a narrow horizontal shelf projecting from a wall, a cliff. Second is brink, the extreme edge of land before a steep slope or a body or water. Expanse, a wide continuous area of something. Flapped, move up and down when flying or preparing to fly. Muster, gather, plunge, jump or dive shrilly with a very high pitched and piercing voice or sound. upbraiding, scolding, hearing, a soft-finned sea fish, devour, eat quickly, cackle, laugh in a loud, harsh way, cowardice, lack of bravery, ascending the sky, the act of rising up through the air, preening, to tidy and clean its feathers. The meaning of hump is a rounded raised mass of earth or land, scraped, discard, derisively in a manner expressing contempt or ridicule, plaintively means sad, uttered, make a sound with one's voice, halted, stopped, monstrous, horrible, seized, grab, headlong with the head foremost, soaring, flying or rising high in the air, swooped, especially if a bird moved rapidly downwards through the air, curveting, perform a series of jumps on the hind legs, shrieking, making a high-pitched piercing cry or sound, shrilly, loudly and forcefully, ridges, a long narrow hilltop, mountain range or watershed, cowed, utter a cow, and beckoning is gesture. So these are certain words and meanings from part 1, his first flight. So make sure that you write these meanings just in the book above the word or near to the word with the help of the pencil. Now we will move to the chapter. Read the introduction before you read. Since the earliest times, humans have dreamt of conquering the skies. Here are 2 stories about flying. A young seagull is afraid to fly. How does he conquer his fear? So we'll get the answer to this particular question in the first part of the lesson, where a young seagull is really afraid to fly because of the fear in his mind. But how finally he musters up the courage and he conquers his fear. Let's move further. His first flight. The young seagull was alone on his ledge. His 2 brothers and sister had already flown away the day before. He had been afraid to fly with them. So, as the lesson begins, the young seagull was alone on his ledge. Ledge, I've already told you, a narrow horizontal shelf projecting from a wall or a cliff. Here it's a cliff, a narrow edge of the cliff. So he was just standing alone there, and his 2 brothers and sisters, they had already flown away the day before. He was really afraid to fly with them. Somehow, when he had taken a little run forward to the brink of the ledge and attempted to flap his wings to become afraid, the great expanse of sea stretched down the beneath, and it was such a long way down, miles down. He felt certain that his wings would never support him. So he bent his head and ran away back to the little hole under the ledge where he slept at night. Somehow, when he had taken a little run forward to the brink of the ledge and attempted to flap his wings, he became really afraid. He tried. It was not like that he didn't try. He tried, but he somehow felt certain that his wings would never support him. So he bent his head and ran away back to the little hole under the ledge where he slept at night. So he spent most of his nights there alone, waiting for his family to come to him, but everything went into vain because they had left him to keep trying, and he could not think about his own abilities, and he always lost his courage going back to the little hole where he slept every day. calling him shrilly, upbraiding him, threatening to let him starve on his ledge unless he flew away. But for the life of him, he could not move. See, his parents did every possible thing. They scolded him. They scolded with a very high pitch sound, but they threatened him to let him starve, that he would not be given any kind of food. Despite that, he could not move. That was 24 hours ago. Since then, nobody had come near him. The day before, all day, he had watched his parents flying about with his brother and sister, perfecting them in the art of the flight, teaching them how to skim the waves. Skim means to move lightly just above a surface, and how to dive for fish. He had in fact seen his older brother catch his first herring and devour it, standing on a rock while his parents circled around, raising a proud cackle. Now, even when all of his brothers and his little sister, whose wings were far shorter than his own, ran to the brink, flapped their wings, and flew away, but he failed to muster up the courage to take that plunge. His father and mother came, upbraiding him, scolding him, threatening him to let him starve, but he could not move. Though, on the other hand, his younger siblings managed to take their first flight despite their wings being shorter than his. He was scolded by his parents for not trying. Now, that was 24 hours ago. Nobody had come near him. The day before, all day long, he had watched his parents flying about, his brothers and sister perfecting them in the art of flight. It was almost 24 hours. He had been waiting for his parents to come to him. But the parents were focusing more on the other siblings. They helped his siblings master the art of flying, how to skim, how to dive for the food, the art of flying. And his older sibling had even caught his first fish, which he proudly ate, whereas his parents celebrated his first food that he caught. Everybody started the celebration because he caught his first herring and devoured it. They enjoyed, they raised a proud cackle to mark the celebration. And all the morning, the whole family had walked about on the big plateau. Midway down the opposite cliff, taunting him with his cowardice. Now, the same morning, his parents scolded him, taunted him, who were there on the opposite cliff, and they taunted him for his cowardice, for being a coward, not trying, whereas his other siblings had already started flying, and one of the younger siblings had caught the first fish. The sun was now ascending the sky. Blazing on his ledge that faced the south, he felt the heat because he had not eaten since the previous nightfall. Ascending the sky means the act of rising up through the air. So the sun was rising. The sun had now risen and he was feeling the heat more than ever. And apart from that, he was really hungry. He had not eaten anything since the previous nightfall. He stepped out of his ledge, standing on one leg with the other leg hidden under his wing. He closed one eye, then the other, and pretended to be falling asleep. Still, they took no notice of him. Now, the seagull wanted to get the attention of his parents. He was empty stomach. He pretended to sleep on one leg to gain the attention of his family. But nobody noticed him. His siblings were sleeping, his father was cleaning his feathers with his beak, and his mother was standing on another plateau eating fish while she noticed him. The only person noticed him was his own mother. He saw his two brothers and his sister lying on the plateau, dozing with their heads sunk into their necks. His father was spraining the feathers on his white back. Only his mother was looking at him. She was standing on a little high hump on the plateau, her white breast thrust forward. Now and again she tore at a piece of fish and that lay at her feet and then scraped each side of her beak on the rock. The sight of the food maddened him. How he loved to tear food that way, scraping his beak now and again to wet it. When he wanted the attention of his parents, of his siblings, no one noticed him. As his siblings were sleeping, his father was cleaning his feathers and his mother was standing on the other plateau eating her food. But somehow she noticed him. When he saw the food, it maddened him. He became mad on seeing the fish because he was so hungry and he loved scraping the fish, eating it with his beak now and then. He was going crazy and he was getting mad at the sight of the food. Ga, 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 he cried, begging her to bring him some food. Ga khol a, she screamed back derisively. Derisively means in a manner showing someone that he or she is stupid. But he kept calling plaintively. Plaintively means sad, in a very sad way. And after a minute or so, he uttered a joyful scream. He started begging for the food from his mother, but his mother reacted in such a way that he could feel that he is stupid because he has not been trying and not getting the food just because of him not making the efforts. He kept calling his mother because he was really sad. And after a minute, he uttered a joyful scream when he looked at his mother, that his mother is approaching towards him. His mother had picked up a piece of the fish and was flying across to him with it. He leaned out eagerly, tapping the rock with his feet, trying to get nearer to her as she flew across. He was very happy when he found that his mother is approaching to him. He was getting ready to eat the food. He was getting ready to actually have the taste of the fish that his mother was scraping, bringing the food for him. But when she was just opposite to him, she halted. And her almost within reach of his beak. But when she was just opposite to him, she halted, her wings motionless, the piece of fish in her beak almost within reach of his beak. He waited a moment in surprise, wondering why she did not come nearer, and then, maddened by hunger, he dived at the fish. His mother was just opposite to him, and her wings were motionless. The piece of the fish was already there with her in her beak, almost within reach of his beak. He waited a moment in surprise, wondering why she did not come nearer. So, the baby seagull was waiting for his mother to come nearer to him. And though she came near to him, but she did not allow him to have the food.